Joseph von Sternberg was considered by many to be a difficult man, yet to me, he was always very patient, and I consider him in many respects to be my mentor. I can remember, it must have been practically 50 years ago now, when I was in film school. I mentioned it to the instructor that I really liked the films of Joseph von Sternberg. And I said, I think they have a lot of ambience. And I remember the instructor gave me a kind of a dirty look, practically with a snarl, and he said, ambience? That's some kind of a new word. With the advent of sound, the language of cinema met with a new challenge. The ability to enhance the visual image with dialogue, music, and natural sound meant freedom to expand from the limits of simple cutting as well as effects through montage. The strength of a director's images could now be augmented with sound for the enhancement of atmosphere. Two key elements in the establishment of atmosphere find their antecedents in terms from painting: chiaroscuro and sfumato. Joseph von Sternberg was adept at both. Chiaroscuro is the dynamization of space through the graduation of lighting so as to create a mosaic of light. It's the interplay of layering of white to gray to black that keeps the eye working to process the image. Sfumato is the Italian term for smoke. Use of mists, clouds, or fog create a murky effect to lend a sense of ambience to a scene. Marilyn Monroe's career began toward the end of the 1940s. She had been working during the war as an aircraft worker. She was a spray painter. She had done a lot of different odd jobs. So she wasn't immediately entered into films in the terms that we would come to think of as a sex object. It was a very slow thing that developed toward the end of the 40s, and around 1950 is when she really became known and had established an image that later became the iconic, mythic, legendary star figure that we know of her today. Her films, to the beginning, were bit parts, and frequently she had ended up cut from the films. And of course, everyone is aware of the famous poster that she did nude, for which she received $50, and they sold it over the years they made $750,000 off of that particular thing, and she realized very little. It's interesting to observe the shift that's taken place in terms of the collective perception of Marilyn Monroe from the beginning of her film career to her image at her life's end. The memory of Marilyn Monroe's initially was shaped by projections of a vivacious, legendary star, and nowadays she's become more iconic than she ever was when she was alive. And I think a lot of memories of her have added and bolstered the myth that originally was built through publicity. The collective perception of the myth and the idea of that particular archetype that became Marilyn represents a 1950s extension of the sexuality breaking free of the 1930s and 40s confines of, say, a flippant Mae West. Sexuality in American cinema went from the more flippant and more innuendo works expressed by Mae West to the more implicit and more explicit work that you'd see in Marilyn Monroe, particularly in her films Bus Stop, Some Like It Hot, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and by the time it came to Misfits, which was her last film, the entire image that had been projected, the myth, the archetype that had been established from Norma Jean Baker to Marilyn Monroe had undergone a complete permutation, and it left the American cinema goers, cinema fans of Marilyn Monroe with an entirely different, lasting impression, and therefore it changed the memories that we had of Marilyn, and the memories further shaped the myth. While it's been nearly 50 years since the passing of Marilyn Monroe in 1962, every year here at Westwood Cemetery, thousands come to see the burial vault and visit Marilyn. And it's very, very touching to see how they relate to her by leaving messages, mementos, letters. And in front of the vault is covered with lipstick kisses from many different women who come to see and visit her. And I thought that while it might seem intrusive and maybe even voyeuristic, it would be very interesting had it been possible over the years to form a compilation of all of the letters and all of the thoughts and all of the memories that all of her fans had shared with her. And it would be somewhat of an interesting and very insightful way to understand how her particular legend and how her myth of her particular archetype had been established over the years in the minds of her viewers and through their memories as well as through her films, and how this has shaped that particular iconic image that we've all come to understand as Marilyn Monroe the phenomenon. Just as archetype exemplifies myth, so has our collective conscience been shaped by Marilyn Monroe as a revered icon of the 50s sex goddess. Marilyn Monroe exemplifies how the myth shapes our memory.